Howdy folks, welcome back to Boonedockery. Today I'm going to be reviewing my DD 4x4 Multicam, yes, I did say Multicam Tarp. Now about 15 years ago, I would say, when I first started getting into contemporary wild camping and bushcrafting, I ordered my first camping hammock from DD. And I believe it was the very first generation of the front line. I remember their sales spiel was that it could be a hammock or it could be a ground bivvy. Well, I got many years of service out of that hammock, and you know, I went on to other models of hammocks from there, but I kept it. It was in absolutely fantastic shape for the amount of use and abuse that I put it through. And I gifted it to a very dear friend of mine, which is using and abusing it to this day. Now, my experience from working with DD, with that one particular hammock, told me that, first of all, they make good products. Secondly, they're a good, reasonable price. And thirdly, I received it from England within a week, and the shipping was like minuscule. So with those three things going in their favor, I'd be a fool not to look toward them for future purchases. Now, DD, not long ago, I would say probably 5 to 7 years ago, introduced a line of their tarps called Multicam. Now, this is what I know of Multicam. However, their variation of Multicam was this. That is not this. This is not that, even though they both share the same name. One thing that they both have going for them is that they are fantastic camouflage patterns for multi-terrains and multi-environments. And after I received it, I was like, don't know if I'm too keen about this. But that issue was soon put to rest as I experienced just how effective that camouflage pattern is. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the tarp. My first experience with DD tarps actually came from seeing the tarps that friends of mine had purchased and were using many years ago. And one of which had one of the XL tarps. That is 4 meters by 3 meters. And he happened to have his setup in a manner in which he slung his hammock underneath of it. He had tons of space. It was a basic A-frame configuration. Well, we started getting some foul weather, and it was spitting snow and rain. He simply unstaked one of the sides, pulled it up into a lean-to type of configuration, and all of us pretty much hung out there the rest of the afternoon until it stopped raining and snowing again. And I saw the value of having a large tarp like that. Up until that point, I was using a custom-made Survival Solutions 10-foot by 10-foot swag shack, which was doing a pretty good job for me. However, the idea of having something just a little bit larger really appealed to me. When DD first introduced the Multicam pattern, they also, I believe the same time period, introduced the 4 meter by 4 meter tarp. And since I've purchased this, this is my go-to foul weather, winter, cold weather tarp system that I use for my hammock. I set it up like this almost all the time, and I loved it so much and saw the value of having a communal shelter that I went ahead and purchased another one. And now when I'm going out with some of my friends, especially if we're not having to hike too far into the forest, I'll take both tarps with me so I can have my tarp and I can set up a communal tarp for all of us to be able to gather around and inside and under when we have foul weather. I personally prefer a square tarp over any of the other shapes that are out there. They all have their purpose, they all have their shining moments and shelter. However, the square tarp allows you to configure a much wider variety of shelters than any of the other shapes. I generally use three. I usually use a plow point, a lean-to, and an A-frame. This particular configuration I'm standing beside now is a modified A-frame, and that I have pulled all the corners up and have pulled those in toward the center, and they basically create tent flaps. Now, the DD 4x4 can easily, in any of those configurations, be a multi-person shelter. In this configuration, you can, and I have, camped with up to 3 people in here very easily. You could go 4, but you're really pushing it. Now what I'll do is I'll sling my hammock on the inside, and generally if we're going to be camping multiple people in the shelter, there'll be 2 people on the ground camping, and there's still sufficient room for all 3 of our packs inside. I think that's a pretty impressive configuration, and for 3 people, only 1 person has to carry the tarp. That's a pretty good deal when you're out backpacking. Limits the weight, and you can cross share different types of items. 1 person can take the cook system, 1 person can carry the shelter, 1 person can carry the food. It works out very, very well. But the DD 4x4, above and beyond any of the others that I've seen prior to this, could not do the same job as well. Now, from all outward appearances, this is a very basic tarp. It's just really big, and it's got a really cool camouflage pattern. The tarp comes with 19 webbing points, and there are no grommets whatsoever on this, which I really, really like. You have 5 that create the ridge, and you can suspend your tarp with the webbing loops, or you can suspend it with a guy or a ridge line going through it. There are now with the corners, on each side it will appear to have 5 individual connection points, but in total there are 19. It weighs 1,350 grams or 2.97 pounds, and as far as a tarp of this size, I think it's fairly lightweight. When I purchased mine, it came with a stuff sack. Now they also include pegs, guy lines, in addition to the stuff sack. Now I'm going to take you through and show you close up some of these connection points and the reinforcements that make this tarp a superior tarp. We're going to start by looking at the fabric. The fabric is very thin, and it has a much different feel to it than my other tarps. My other tarps are essentially made of the same material that a USGI issue poncho is made of, and it's a much heavier fabric than this, and the waterproofing on those ripstop nylon materials that go into the ponchos have a sticky, tacky sort of surface to it. The exterior is very smooth, it's very soft, and the interior, there's none of that gumminess that you get with that type of nylon that they make the ponchos out of. Now when I first got this, I was looking at the stitching. Now the stitching isn't particularly impressive. It's literally a single line of stitching. And in all the years that I have owned this, not a single area of this thread or this stitching has come loose, has torn free, or frayed. And the type of thread that they're using doesn't look to be particularly heavy duty. However, the combination of this type of fabric with the thread they use for stitching has got to be the perfect combination. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the abuse I've put this thing through here in just a few. Now, this was one aspect of the tarp that really caught my attention. When I purchased this tarp, this is the first time I ever saw this type of a material. This is very heavy duty, and it's got a microfiber reinforcement in this vinyl like material. I looked on the website and I could not find any information about what this fabric is for the actual tarp or what the material is for these reinforced areas to where there are webbing. Any place that there is webbing, you have this material that's sewn into place to where the webbing is sewn in and through it. And it makes it incredibly tough. It prevents stretching. That was the huge thing I noticed. My other tarps, the custom-made tarp, I had my 10 by 10 from Survival Solutions, doesn't have any of this. I had it custom made to where it only has webbing on it, no grommets. But even at that, the tarp did stretch considerably. And having a large area covering the section of tarp where the connection point of the webbing is located, it prevents this area here from pulling the rest of the fabric and stretching it. That is incredibly important for the long term of your tarp use. Now I want to talk to you about the ruggedness, the toughness, and the quality of these tarps. Last November, a year ago, I set this tarp up in this configuration, this very tarp. And the ridge line is running through the ridge of the tarp, touching the actual tarp. The other tarp that I had set up over there in a lean-to type of configuration. It also had a 550 cord ridge line at one peak, and then the other side came up just a little bit further. Tall pole in front, corners staked down for drainage. Well, I set these up in November. I came out every weekend to either camp or to check on the tarps, and I would, tighten all the guy lines, resecure everything, tighten the ridge lines, any type of sagging, anything like that. And I did that until I took them both down in March. They were exposed to the elements and extreme elements from November to March. During this time, they were exposed to rain, snow, high winds. There were several times that I came out and I lost stakes because the wind was so fierce that it pulled out the stakes and they went flying. Found some of them I didn't. And the one thing I noticed when I reconfigured these things, staked them back out again, tightened the ridge line, is that the area of the tarp at the ridge that had full contact with 550 cord was not damaged in any way, shape, or form. There was no fraying, there was no scuffing, there was no tears, there was no abrasions. I find that incredible. 550 cord is abrasive, and there's a lot of things that you probably don't want to use it for because of that abrasive quality. However, these tarps had no ill effects from the 550 cord. The tarp that I had set up in a lean-to configuration, That took the worst abuse. And where this tarp, the snow accumulation, slid down to the bottom, squished in the sides, that's okay. Put a lot of weight on the ridge line, pulled it down, but still no stretching. Just pushing it in. But when I stretched everything back out, the tarp itself, the fabric itself, was not stretched. The other tarp, well, we had a tremendous amount of snow, then we had some warm weather, then we had some freezing weather, then we had some rain, then we had some more snow, and the temperatures fluctuated quite a bit one week. I came out to check on it. It was pretty much it collapsed down, and with the weight of the snow and ice. There was huge chunks of ice that were created by the melting snow. When I was trying to remove the ice, it would be pretty heavy, and I was picking it up. Well, it broke under its own weight, and one of the large chunks that I had in my hands fell out when it broke, and a chunk fell free. A jagged portion of the ice fell and punctured the other tarp. I'm going to be doing another follow-up video for this one where I repair that tear in the tarp. However, even with all of the elemental abuse that tarp sustained, there was still no stretching of fabric. None of the webbing was damaged in any way, shape, or form. All of those reinforced connection points to the tie-out areas were in perfect condition. The tarps are still 100% waterproof. I've used these, both of them, several times since, and have exposed them to rain. They are still completely waterproof. Sheds water. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. I would say that would very easily be considered a torture test. And of course, by doing any of the things that I did do, it completely blew away any chance of the warranty standing up. The only problem that I saw from that type of abuse was from UV, ultraviolet radiation. And I'll bring you in a little closer because it did fade the pattern a little bit. However, even with the exposure of those many months to direct sunlight, it's pretty much like it is now. There's no leaves here. There's no shade here through those months. So they were constantly being exposed to ultraviolet radiation. But the fabric itself on the tarp is still very, very viable. It's soft, it's supple. There is nowhere on it to where that ultraviolet radiation caused it to be brittle or broke down the fabric itself. Now, as I stated, the only ill effects through all that abuse and torture was the fact that the pattern faded a little bit. As you can see, it's very, very good in this time of year, in this environment. However, this is what it used to look like. The greens were much more vivid. The dark browns were much more dark. And this pattern on the stuff sack makes it an absolutely phenomenal year-round pattern. Because of the fading that occurred during my torture test over last winter, this is now primarily going to be a winter and fall and early spring tarp. And other than that, that was the only damage done through the abuse that I put it through. So you're probably wondering, John, yeah, we hear you. You think it's good, but was there anything about the tarp that you didn't like? Well, actually, there were a few things. The size of the tarp makes it difficult to be able to fold or roll for a single person. It's not impossible. It just takes a little more time and a little more patience to be able to roll it up to get it stored in your pack. And the fabric does not lend itself to being shoved into a compression bag. I did try that, and the fabric, it takes a little while for all of those wrinkles to work out. The camouflage pattern is affected by all of those wrinkles when you wad it up and shove it into a compression bag. It limits its effectiveness. When the fabric is nice and smooth, the pattern does an absolutely phenomenal job. So the size is a little bit of a challenge. And another challenge associated to the size of the tarp was the stuff sacks. I have been able to put this tarp back in this bag. However, I had I had to have a large area of floor space and a large area of nothing in the way floor space in order to fold it and roll it in the manner that I needed to in order for it to get back in this bag. I have since stopped using this bag for rolling and storing my tarp. It's too small. For field use, it's too small. I think that a storage bag could be designed that would be an appropriate size and dimensions for a single person with this size of tarp to be able to fold and roll it in a size that could fit in a stuff sack. It would have to be a different design, different configuration, different dimensions. This was ineffective. Since then, I've been using these bags for many other things, and probably never the same thing twice. So the bags have come in handy, but in my humble opinion, these bags are not what this size and type of tarp needs for field use. And I do a much better job than a lot of the people that I camp with as far as being able to compress things, roll things in a small fashion to be able to maximize my pack space. But even at that, this size and this fabric, the way it slides and folds and rolls, it's a challenge. Other than that, I can't think of anything that would be a negative, that would be a red flag for someone to say, oh, well, nope, that's it, nope, not buying that, not gonna do it, nope, not gonna do it. No, this is a fantastic tarp. My camera is not really good at depicting the interior of this space, but it is huge. Now, I still have about another foot behind me of ground space. Then you have about another amount of space that's the same footprint as my sleep pad and my sleeping bag. And then there's an equivalent space on the other side. with a hammock hanging in the middle, the gear in the center, I can easily accommodate 3 campers in this shelter. And it's absolutely fantastic. When I use the bungee cords on the end flaps, where basically I'm creating tent doors, they overlap, drastically cuts down any of the draft that you would feel. Now, before I give you any of my final thoughts on the DD 4x4 Multicam Tarp, I just want to throw out a disclaimer. I'm no expert on anything. I'm just some guy. You know, I go out and I camp a lot. I do all kinds of other things. I have tremendous amounts of varying interests that involve the outdoors, and I've done it my whole life. And anything that I say on any of my channels, it truly is just my opinion. And so take it for what it's worth, folks. I mean, if you think I'm an okay guy, you get, you know, I'm the type of person that you'd like to hang out around a campfire with, things like that. Take my advice or anything I have to say with that same thought in mind. Friends, sharing ideas, sharing opinions. That being said, in general, never, ever, ever, did I mention ever? If I didn't, by all means, allow me to do so. Ever take the review of a single video as what you base your purchasing on. If you see a video, let's just say, for example, one of mine, you watched one of my videos, you said, wow, that looks pretty cool. I think I'm going to invest in that. Before you get in there, you start, you know, Googling possible locations and businesses of which you could purchase these things from. Make certain you watch other reviews on YouTube. Make certain that you read other reviews from bushcrafting forums, wild camping forums. If I'm covering military stuff, from military forums, read reviews on those as well. Get online and check out the company. And if you have any questions about their products, ask them. Type them a nice little email, send it off. I guarantee you, you'll probably get a really decent, thorough reply in return. And if you don't, well, that's a red flag. I wouldn't purchase from a company that's not willing to work with their consumers or potential consumers in purchasing any of their products. So that's it. That's it. Just some guy. Just some guy. My opinion. My opinion. Now, as far as the DD 4x4 Multicam Tarp goes, my final thoughts is, for my purposes, and that's what I base this entire review video on, is for my purposes, what I have chosen to use it for and what I have used it for extensively over many years. This tarp, for my purposes, is the perfect size. It's incredibly versatile, and there has the potential for so many more tarp configurations than I've ever attempted to do with them. But for what I use it for, it works perfect. So I don't really have a desire to attempt all of these other possible configurations. And with the sparse amount of time that I actually have for woods time, I don't have a whole lot of time to experiment and play with these things. Maybe someday I will, maybe. This tarp is incredibly tough. It really blew my mind just how tough it actually is. It has excellent design features, and because of those design features, that prohibits a lot of issues that I've had with other tarps in the past, like stretching. This thing, after all the years and abuse I've put it through, five months of torture exposed to the elements, it hasn't stretched. It's fantastic. And even after all of that, it's 100% waterproof to this day. The weight and bulk are well worth the benefits, in my humble opinion. This is primarily a foul weather and cold weather shelter system for me, and with other things I've attempted to use in the past, like bivy tents, two-person tents, those types of shelters, this, the weight and the bulk is definitely worth it to be able to pack that for my shelter. DD Hammock's Multicam Pattern. It's not Multicam, okay? I don't know what the deal is with the wording, but you could use that as a general term, a multi-terrain environment camouflage. It's not Cry Precision's Multicam, but this Multicam Pattern, my hat is off to you, DD Hammocks, because this is an extremely effective pattern year-round in my neck of the woods. I live in a woodland environment, a lot of hills, there's a lot of rocks, things like, no matter where I've had this tarp, the camouflage pattern has blended in no matter what time of year it is. So the pattern is extremely effective. Excuse me. Even after the 5 months of constant exposure to UV radiation through the sunlight, it has faded. But even in that fade, for this time of year, fall through early spring, this is going to be absolutely fantastic. And it's probably going to work well in the summer too, but not nearly as well as it would have had it not faded. I personally feel that for what you're getting, and you don't get just the tarp now, you get tent pegs, you have guy lines, you have the bag, you have a few other accessories that comes along with it. I feel that this is an incredibly reasonably priced tarp for the quality you're getting. Even if you're shipping directly or ordering directly from the UK, the shipping time and the shipping cost is extremely reasonable. I believe when I first ordered my first tarp, I was blown away by how little it was going to cost for shipping. I was anticipating I'd get it within a month. However, I received it within 7 days. I don't know if that's their standard, operational procedures to get them out fast, but that's how fast I received mine. However, DD, I believe, now has a store through Amazon, and you can actually get these tarps even faster, maybe $1 or $2 more than you would by ordering it direct. So Amazon, definitely be the place. As a matter of fact, I will put Amazon links through my affiliate down and the description box for you to be able to check these out, read more about them, and if you want to buy one of these, that's one option from where you can purchase these things from. Customer service, absolutely fantastic. I did not personally have any issues with having to communicate with them personally. However, a good friend of mine did concerning one of the hammocks. I believe it was the hammock that I bought years ago. And within 30 minutes, they got back with him, and they actually called him from the UK and worked whatever issue it was now. I can't remember what it is now, but they worked the issue out right then and there. Everything was taken care of within 30 minutes, personally. In my humble opinion, that's incredibly excellent customer service. Now, if you are an avid outdoorsman and you were to purchase this tarp, this is going to serve you for years. If you're an occasional wild camper or occasional bushcrafter and you were to purchase this tarp, this will definitely last you decades. Now, if you don't take care of your stuff, of course, none of that applies, because if you're not taking care of your equipment the way you should, one outing could be its one and only outing. But if you take care of your stuff, this can last anywhere between years and decades. Who knows? It could last a lifetime. I'm still going to be using this one well into the future. My only two complaints, one of which, and this is just a matter of my OCD preferences, I wish that they actually offered this tarp in Cry Precision Multicam. But that's just me. That's just me. That is in no way, shape, or form, saying that their Multicam pattern is not effective. It is very effective. It's fantastic. It's very effective every place I've ever taken. It's a fantastic pattern. And nowhere along this tarp can you see a repeat of segments of pattern. I've seen that a lot with a lot of other tarps, and to where, they'll say, oh, well, it's Multicam, well, it's this pattern. And they show a close-up, one little close-up in there of the actual pattern. And I say, well, that's a pretty good pattern. But when you get it and you set it up and you step away, it looks like a checkerboard. It looks like tiles, because it's just that small section of pattern that is not designed to bleed over each other like puzzle pieces so you don't notice them. And that is definitely a camouflage killer. That will completely blow effectiveness of camouflage patterns. This pattern is flawless in that regard. There's no place on it I can detect where there's a repeat of a pattern section. So that's absolutely fantastic. The other complaint I have is the storage bag, the stuff sack, whatever you want to call it. It's too small. For the average person to be able to manhandle and wrestle a 4 meter by 4 meter tarp and compact that to the size on a wet forest floor, a rocky forest floor, where there's sticks and twigs and everything else, where you have to manhandle it and roll that and get that into the size that you need that will perfectly fit inside that bag. It's a near impossibility. I'm pretty good at stuff like that, and I never get it completely in there. I can usually get it in there to fit in diameter, no problem, but I'll usually have at least this much hanging out of it. I would suggest, and DD Hammocks, if by any chance you're watching, this might be a marketing idea for you, who knows, but to design a bag that does accommodate this tarp, the tent pegs, the guy lines, the ridge line, anything else you want to have with it, all in one package, that your average Joe, non-bushcrafter, non-wild camper, occasional camper, can roll this up by hand and to be able to fit it inside that packaging, that bag, would be absolutely fantastic. And you could even include additions like some type of webbing system to where it could apply molly, and you could put it on the exterior of molly packs as like a small roll, and it could very easily be something that you could incorporate with one of your sleeping bags or with one of your hammocks, to where the hammock, the sleeping bag, the tarp, all can accumulate into one package that can be carried inside the pack or on the outside. And it can be in any range. It could be just the tarp. It could be the tarp and a camp blanket. It could be a tarp and a sleeping bag. It could be a tarp and a hammock with the whole sleep system. But just an idea. But as far as the little bag that comes with it, great little bag for all kinds of things. But for me personally, doesn't work well for your average guy having to wrestle that into the bag. Okay. Now, as far as the DD 4x4 Multicam Tarp, I would endorse this. I do endorse this product, and I do highly recommend it for anyone that has a desire to have a larger style tarp. If you are someone that likes to have durable, well-made, well-designed, well-constructed kit, this is a fantastic tarp. I recommend it. Now, again, I'm just some guy, but this, the DD 4x4 Multicam Tarp, that ain't some tarp. That is an awesome, awesome tarp. Well, folks, there you have it. Folks, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. It's just us now. Cool. Well, making sure no one else can hear us. You know what, folks? I'm going to give one of these away. I am. I'm going to give one of these, a brand new one, not the faded used one, not the used and abused one. No, folks, I'm going to give a brand new DD 4x4 tarp away. And right now, the only ones that I have available to me are in Multicam and in Coyote Brown. However, I will do what I can to get a olive green one if that's your preference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a drawing, just like I do with all my giveaways. And if you win one of the tarps, then I'll contact with you. You let me know what color you want, whether or not it's Multicam or Coyote Brown or olive drab, and I will order it directly from the company and have that shipped to you. Now, me personally, I'm ordering another 4x4 and the Multicam, and I'm not going to abuse it like I did this one. If by any chance you're interested in participating in this giveaway, all you got to do in the description box somewhere, try to make it discreet so folks that are reading through the comments doesn't look at it and says, oh, I see this a lot. There must be a giveaway in here. Keep it on the low key end. Somewhere along the video, you can type in 4x4 me, 4x4 me, 4x4 ME. Somewhere in your comment, just go ahead and type in, oh yeah, Boonedockery, 4x4 me. You know, something like that. But add something else to the comment. So you folks that actually stick with me and support me the way I appreciate you doing so, you guys will be the ones that will be able to receive the tarp, be able to participate in the giveaway. Well, folks, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.